All right, a little follow up on episode 3 with Shelley Luther was a great one. Just super appreciate her time, and she's a warrior and a fighter, and we just love her to death. And we hope she continues to fight the good fight for us. And it's not only just the data center conversation, but it's certainly goes far beyond that. It's really protecting rural Texas and protecting this part of Texas because it's the gateway to the country. And if we continue to lose Texas as a whole, and this part of Texas in particular, really the outcome is something we probably really can't even imagine, if we're not already imagining it. But since that episode, I've gotten a lot of feedback and appreciate it all. A lot of hateful words and a lot of mean statements, but that's okay. I understand this is a situation that we're in. There's a lot of unknowns. It's the Wild West, if you will, with the emergence of the data center and a lot of intrusion on public and private land around here. So tempers are high, um, education is low, and we really need to have a better discussion about this because it is a big deal. But one of the trends that has certainly emerged is kind of this threefold. One is a lot of the feedback I got was, well, the power situation is already taken care of because they're just going to build their own power plants. True, but a lot of false in that, and I'll tell you why. The second one is don't worry about water because it's a closed loop system. And when you research the 5 or 6 major companies in the closed loop arena, that is true. They're not pumping necessarily blue water all the time like they are in a lot of parts of the country, but they are flushing out these closed loop systems, which create a lot of pollutants, and those pollutants are forever chemicals that go back into the aquifers. It's conveniently left out of a lot of the conversation. Um, and then 3 is the job discussion, and there is certainly a lot of jobs going on for these data centers. Obviously, they're massive capital spends. The construction budgets are in the billions, no doubt. But what we have to realize is that those jobs are temporary. And when you do some research and you look at these rural economies, and it doesn't even have to be rural. I'm not talking blinking light rural. I'm talking cities under 50,000 people on the outskirts of larger metropolitan areas. When you promote job growth and you promote housing growth, education growth, all those things in those rural and sub communities outside the big city areas, the tax and the revenue far exceeds the temporary influx of capital and revenue from a data center build. So if you have a 10-year period where people are buying homes, spending disposable income, and supporting the community, the total revenue is 10x to 20x that of a short temporary influx of capital into a community. So there's a lot more discussion to be had on there. And then lastly, the thing that I was surprised about was that this conversation became about AI as a whole. For me, it's it's never been part of the conversation. Uh, I joined this fight because I was concerned about the AI development business, and the people running those businesses don't have our best intention. Just like in COVID, the conversation was had between government and the people who made money off the cure or the potential cure or the potential management of COVID. That was the concerning factor here. I don't like the AI development business. I have plenty of friends, family. We use AI. I hope AI is managed. I hope it grows efficiently. I hope it creates an economy. I don't think it will. I think it'll really curb white collar disposable income. because I think those knowledge-based jobs are going to disappear. And when they disappear, the reality of these rural communities like Grayson County, it's no longer supported on this massive infrastructure of farming and ag. It really is supported on white collar professionals moving up and living out their hobby ranch dreams and buying 5, 10, 15, 20, 100 acres, building $1 million home, and then spending $300,000, $400,000 a year into the local economy. That's really what's driving growth out here. So if those lawyers and professionals, accountants, everybody else, you name it, are no longer supported and don't have the infrastructure or the capital to come out to these rural areas, that's really the scary part here. That's the thing that really drives down the economy. So if I'm concerned about AI, it's that part. I don't like the AI development business because there's a lot of lies. There's a lot of short answers to very complex questions. And there's a lot of answers going on between the AI developers and local government and municipalities that need to be happening in front of the people. So this is about education. One of the reports that I came across, and Shelley and I briefly touched upon it, was this joint legislative and audit and review commission out of Northern Virginia. And these are the things that we have to be reading and getting educated about, people, because this is not, yes, data centers have been around for a long time, but there's short demand data centers, there's cloud-based data centers, there's a lot of like computing data centers, but this hyper-scaled data center growth is new. And in the places that they are being built and supported, the story is not good. And certainly the story does not align with the data center coalition out of Northern Virginia and other places where they made promises in these municipalities they have not come true. So we should be concerned about it, just like we were concerned about Pfizer and the companies that stood to make billions of dollars and did make billions of dollars, if not trillions of dollars, off of scaring you into a COVID vaccination for the simple fact of making a dollar off of you. We should be concerned on that level. That the data center development business stinks like that. It stinks like concrete kilns in Grayson County, and it stinks like train depots and all the other things that we raised hell about here in Grayson County. And for some reason now, if you just read this generated script, don't worry about the power, don't worry about the water, don't worry. We got it all figured out. We're all going to make billions of dollars off the construction of these things, but nobody's talking about the outcomes. And we have outcomes in other parts of the country that aren't being discussed. So this Joint Legislative Audit and Review Committee report was centered around Northern Virginia. Now, Northern Virginia, if you don't know, has the largest concentration of data centers, all kinds of data centers, like the ones we talked about, the older ones, the newer ones, and now is proposing a massive growth in these hyper-scaled AI data centers. Okay, so it looks like they have the customers up there. They're probably doing a lot of surveillance. It's probably tied into DC very closely. I mean, there should be no coincidence in why the largest concentration of data centers is in Northern Virginia, right next to DC. So the 3 counties surrounding Washington, DC have the largest concentration of data centers. The 3 counties around Washington, DC have the largest concentration of data centers. Why, if they were all AI based and all these unicorn AI companies coming out of California, Texas, and other parts, there's not many in DC. So you're not going to ask the question that these are related to surveillance and national security? We should be asking that question. I don't think that we should be arguing about that. We should be asking that question. Well, this report centers around the projected 200% growth of the data centers in those 3 counties in Northern Virginia in the time of 2026 to 2040. Okay? So a 14-year span with a big concentration in that 2030 to 2040 time frame. So a 10-year time frame. Okay. There is 45 to 65 gigawatts of potential power needed to support the 200% growth of data centers emergence in Northern Virginia. Okay, so 45 to 65 gigawatts needed, additional power needed from Dominion, which is the power supplier in that part of the country. 1 gigawatt is 1,000 megawatts. 1 gigawatt powers 750,000 to 1 million homes. So the power needed to support the growth of data centers in Northern Virginia is essentially enough power to power 65 million homes. So 3 counties in Northern Virginia need enough power to power 65 million homes, essentially the whole East Coast. Okay. By the way, let me back up. That 65 gigawatts of power needed for that data center growth is only to achieve 50% of the potential growth. So they didn't even try to tackle reaching the full capacity of data centers planned because there's absolutely no way they even achieve the 50%. So one natural gas plant produces 1 gigawatt per plant. So they need 45 to 65 new natural gas plants, power plants, to achieve the goal. One nuclear power plant produces 1.1 gigawatt. So 41 to 59 nuclear power plants in those 3 counties to power the 50% of the growth. These counties aren't that big, folks. They're not that big. They're not as big as Grayson County. Solar does not even compute, doesn't even get us close to the mark. So it was dropped from the study. So now you need 65 natural gas plants, 59 nuclear power plants to achieve 50% of the growth. Okay. Seems absolutely ridiculous. So where do the people in those 3 counties going to go to live? There's absolutely no room for all. So it's almost on a ridiculous scale. So I look at that data and I say, okay, that's ridiculous, not achievable. So the innovation is going to come from finding better ways to process this AI data, which would probably make the data center, this behemoth hyperscale data center, no longer relevant. It's a fair question. It's a totally fair question. So, do I want to destroy the housing value, the small business, the infrastructure, the schools, the public schools, the private schools, everything in these 3 counties just to power the data centers? And we're not even talking about water here, folks. The data centers that are there currently are using 5 billion gallons a year in fresh water. Okay, so we're not even talking about the water. We're just talking about power. So do I want to displace 3 counties in Northern Virginia, completely displace, ruin the property values, when we know that this growth is unachievable and that the innovation is probably going to go away from these hyperscaled data centers to possibly space, like Elon Musk has talked about, or some other type of technology that these very, very smart people can figure out. So this is a dirty business. This data center developer business is a dirty business. They're looking for the land grab. They have no intention of meeting the abatement promises. They have no intention of meeting the infrastructure promises. I mean, look, if we said, hey, we can't fight this, it's going to happen. Why aren't we negotiating guarantees? Like, okay, if you're going to get this abatement, you're going to put in, as you're building, you're going to put in $50 million into County X to improve these infrastructure components. You're going to make a donation to the schools. You're going to finance the police and first responders. Why aren't we having those discussions? If they have all the money to build this massive infrastructure, why are we having those discussions? Why aren't the negotiations better? Why aren't they in favor of the people that are going to have to live in the shadow or the light of a massive hyperscale data center? It's because the property value goes to zero in a 10 to 20 square mile radius around the data center. The power bill, your electric bill, goes through the roof because, understand this, in this report, it also states that the infrastructure build to support a data center falls on the ratepayer. The data center will pay its fair share of the utility bill, but they need new transmission lines, new solar fields. They're building nuclear plants with the promise of sending some power back. But if one nuclear plant only produces 1 gigawatt, there's not going to be any power to go back. So all that money and capital infrastructure falls on the ratepayer. Okay? So we need to look at this carefully. You have to ask the right questions. Please stop fighting your friends, sending them nasty grams when they're talking about they don't want AI centers. You know, if we wanted a simple solution, if you're so for these, then you go live next to them. Okay? If you want one, then you have one built next to your house. Okay? If you want to have one out in rural Texas, then everybody who worked on that data center has to live around it. How about that? Keep all the money on the land. I know that's ridiculous, but if you're not in the fight, then don't fight the people that are in the fight. It doesn't make sense. We're a Muslim takeover here in Texas. Now we have this data center takeover. Nobody has the best interest of rural Texans. Nobody has the best interest of small towns. Nobody has the best interest of small business anymore in Texas. So yes, I'm going to fight. I'm not fighting against AI. I'm fighting against AI developers because this business is dirty. It's just as dirty as all the people that were making billions off the COVID scare. It is no different. And you need to put that lens on because not one person sitting on that small table across from your moron representatives that are sitting in those joint committee meetings have your best interest. And you better right now find out if any of your city council members, anybody of your county commissioners have signed NDAs or are not or are pushing these deals under the table. Because you are protected in Texas. Yes, the property laws here are pretty open and they don't allow for much flexibility. But your city officials, your elected officials cannot sign NDAs without disclosing that they signed those NDAs. Go find them. Get the people on board. Join these voter blocks and let your voice be heard. This is not a fight against AI. This is a fight against the AI development business because it does not work out for us in the end. And it just have to look at projects that are going on around the country to realize that. So appreciate all the feedback, good and bad. Appreciate the conversation. I'm in it. I hope you can join it. I hope you can at least just open your ears. You don't have to comment on it, but just be aware that these things are happening. And no matter what, even if you're not in rural Texas or you're not in rural Ohio or up in rural Midwest, these things are going to affect every American. It's going to raise the price of electricity across the country and across the world. It's going to limit our freshwater supply. It's going to ruin the environment. They're producing a lot of heat. And then most importantly, it's just going to ruin the culture of the American way of life. And that's why you need to be a part of the conversation. Appreciate y'all.